One way of looking at what's happening to Christianity is to use the analogy of how the caterpillar changes into a butterfly. Now, caterpillars feed and grow, and they feed more and they grow more, and they can shed their skin numerous times as they do so. They're constantly, in a way, redefining their boundaries. But then there comes a stage when a major transformation has to happen. It's an inevitable process. The caterpillar has no control over it itself. It stops moving, it stops growing, it develops a hard outer shell, a chrysalis, and everything inside the outer layer turns into a kind of goo. Well, actually, not quite everything. The essential mechanism for breathing, for life, stays in the same place and grows. It gets bigger because in order to fly, a butterfly needs far more oxygen than a caterpillar does. The amazing thing is that inside the caterpillar are structures called imaginal discs that do nothing at all for the caterpillar. But during the metamorphosis of the goo inside the chrysalis, these imaginal discs grow and develop into all the structures that the adult butterfly needs. A total transformation happens in order for the next stage to take off. There's the old joke about the two caterpillars talking to each other when one looks up and sees a butterfly flying overhead and says, "You wouldn't get me up in one of those." The point of the joke, if it's a joke at all, being that the change is inevitable, it's unstoppable. That's where they will end up. It will happen. So let's think about Chrysalis Christianity, because it's grown and it's shed its skin, its theological skin, numerous times. There have been theological trends and differences in practice that have come and gone, and it's grown bigger and bigger, the theology of it all. But in the Western world, in terms of numbers, the growth has stopped. It's become crystallized, no longer able to keep up with the contemporary world. The theological structures it has have become irrelevant to many, and the doctrines and the dogmas that have sustained it for 2,000 years aren't really holding it any longer. The container has hardened, but inside the container, there's still a crystallized form, a new creature beginning to take shape. The imaginal discs are developing, patches of future potential that have been held within the faith until the time is right for them to develop. They're now waking up. Like the caterpillar, it's reforming so that it can eventually take flight. It's the basis of it is the caterpillar of tradition, but it looks and behaves very differently. It flies, it expands into another realm of understanding and being. The butterfly has a totally different worldview and a different perspective. Its transformation is based on its earlier life, yet it looks and feels entirely different. So what is this new perspective for Christianity? Something's emerging, coming more to the fore. The teachings of Jesus were essentially about spiritual transformation, and that vital message seems to have been submerged over the years of traditional church teaching. It became like an imaginal disc within the caterpillar of church teaching. It is part of the perennial wisdom tradition that can be traced back through the ages to pre-Christian times. And my aim is to show that in writing the books that I'm writing at the moment, that there is a wider, more spacious wisdom path within the body of Christian teaching that's about the transformation of the human being to be filled with all the fullness of God, to quote Ephesians, and the Apostle Peter says it as well. We are to become participants in the divine nature. And these teachings of Jesus were essentially, through love, to be focusing on the transformation of the human being. The simple instructions were to love your neighbor, to love God as you love yourself. And through love, that concentration and focusing ourselves at that level of consciousness will transform us altogether. So it's not about a transaction between God and humanity. It's about a transformation of human consciousness. It's about growing into the fullness and oneness of the divine. We are all one in the divine being that holds everything, sustains everything, and in one strange way is everything. It is all one being, one consciousness, one life.